You ever wonder why love, this thing that's supposed to be the best part of life, so often ends up causing so much pain? It's a question that feels incredibly personal, right? But what if the answer isn't just in our heads? What if it's actually in the world all around us? Well, today, we're going to dig into that pretty radical idea.
I mean, we've all been there, haven't we? The endless, exhausting swiping on apps, the breakups that just leave you feeling completely hollowed out, that constant knot in your stomach, that anxiety of just not knowing where you stand with someone. It's this uniquely modern kind of heartache where the search for connection somehow leaves us feeling more alone than ever before.
And what's the usual explanation we get for all this pain? Well, our culture basically points the finger right back at us. It's our childhood, our attachment style, some deep psychological flaw that we need to fix. We're told to look inward, to analyze every mistake, to find that personal failure that's supposedly sabotaging our own love lives.
Okay, but here's the big idea for this explainer, and it comes from the work of sociologist Eva Illouz. What if all your romantic suffering isn't really a personal failing at all? What if it's actually the logical, predictable outcome of the social and economic system we're all living in? To really get why our world can be so painful, we need something to compare it to. So let's take a trip back in time to a world with completely different rules for love, the world of Jane Austen. Now, this isn't about being nostalgic for the good old days, it's about seeing how a different social structure created a totally different emotional reality.
So back then, the number one thing you looked for in a partner wasn't some mysterious chemistry or sparks. It was what they called character. And this wasn't some private, internal thing. It was a public quality. Your moral integrity, your reliability, all proven by how you acted in your community, day in and day out over years.
This quote from Emma is the perfect example of what I'm talking about. Mr. Knightley's love for Emma isn't just a passive feeling, it's an active moral project. He sees her flaws, and he wants to help her become a better person based on a moral code they both understand. You see, love wasn't about blind adoration. It was about seeing someone clearly, flaws and all, and loving their potential for virtue.
Think of it like this. That world had a kind of social safety net for romance. The whole community was involved. They'd help you figure out if someone was a good match. There were clear, understood rituals for courtship, so you always knew what the next step was. And this is so important. Deep emotions were supposed to follow a commitment, not come before it. And your reputation? Your entire place in society depended on you keeping your promises.
And here's the crucial takeaway from all that. Your value as a person wasn't based on whether one specific person found you attractive. Your self-worth was anchored in your public character, your honor. That's exactly why someone like Elizabeth Bennet can hear Mr. Darcy's initial brutal insults and basically just shrug them off. His private opinion doesn't shatter her sense of self, because her worth is built on something much bigger.
So what happened? How did we get from that super-structured world to the chaos of today? A massive social earthquake happened, something sociologists call a great transformation. Love was totally uprooted. It moved from being part of the community to being part of the market. Basically, the whole process of finding a partner was unplugged from that moral and social web of the community. It turned into a new kind of free market, where we as individuals compete with each other based on a whole new set of rules and values. And nobody decided to do this, it was just the result of huge economic and cultural changes.
So the first big shift was in what we value. The most important quality in a partner went from being their public character to being their private internal world, their sexuality, their psychology. We stopped looking for a person of good standing and started looking for a soulmate.
And of course, the regulations changed. Those guardrails that were provided by community rules and family oversight, they were just removed. And what took their place? Absolute, total individual choice. Which means the entire burden of choosing the right person and all of the blame for choosing the wrong one now falls right on our own shoulders.
And finally, the very source of our value shifted. It no longer came from our public reputation or our honor. Instead, it became tied to the private, subjective, and frankly, really unpredictable feelings between two people. All of a sudden, your worth feels directly linked to being chosen, to being someone's personal preference.
So, that brings us right up to today. What does life actually feel like inside this new romantic marketplace? Let's break down the real-world consequences of all this competition, branding, and radical uncertainty.
Well, the modern experience is a battlefield of intense competition, where we're all hyper-aware of our market value. We feel this relentless pressure to brand ourselves, to create the perfect online profile.
We get paralyzed by endless options. And without any clear rules, we're left in this state of chronic anxiety. Always asking, do they like me? What did that text really mean? Is there maybe someone better out there for me?
And this is why rejection hurts so much more now. In the old system, if you were rejected, it could be explained away. It was about status or family or money. But in this new market, where the choice is based on subjective desire and a psychological connection, rejection feels like a final verdict on your fundamental worth as a human being. It's not about your circumstances, it feels like it's about you.
So, after walking through all of that pain and uncertainty, where does that leave us? I mean, is it all just hopeless? No, not at all. This sociological way of looking at things doesn't just explain the pain. It actually gives us a powerful new way to understand it.
And this is maybe the most important thing to take away from all of this. The anxiety you feel, the sting of rejection, the absolute exhaustion from the endless search, this is not proof that there's something wrong with you. It does not mean you are broken or that you're unlovable.
Your suffering is very often a totally rational response to an irrational system. It's a predictable outcome of a high-stakes romantic game that prizes fleeting feelings over stable commitments, that demands we constantly market ourselves, and that gives us zero clear rules to follow. We are all playing a very difficult game, and sometimes the game itself is the problem.
And so we're left with this final, really challenging question. In a world that's taken away all the old social guardrails and has left us to figure out love all on our own, how do we build relationships that are both meaningful and resilient? Maybe thinking about love not just as a feeling, but as a social practice. That might just be the first step toward finding an answer.